Joe, let's get moving here. It is week 8 in college football, and it's Wednesday. So, Joe, you know what that means. We're doing our power rankings. Your 1 through 12 and your power rankings this week consists of what?
At number 1, Miami. Number 2, Ohio State. 3, Indiana. 4, Alabama. 5, Texas Tech. I'm standing by it. 6, Texas A&M. 7, Georgia. 8, Ole Miss. 9, USC. 10, Notre Dame. 11, Tennessee. Yeah, wait. I thought I wrote Tennessee twice. And 12, Georgia Tech.
Let me move on to mine here really quickly before we get into this debate. Number 1, Ohio State. Number 2, Miami. Number 3, Indiana. Number 4, Alabama. Number 5, Georgia. Number 6, Texas A&M. Number 7, Oregon. Number 8, Ole Miss. Number 9, Texas Tech. Number 10, Notre Dame. Number 11, LSU. And number 12, I wrap it up with Missouri. My good friend, I let you kick it off every single week. Where do you want to take this one first?
Oh, man. Do we want to have the quick Ohio State Miami discussion?
Let's do it. You have Miami. You have Miami at number 1. I have Ohio State. I have Miami at 2, and I'm wearing my Miami green again this week, so they don't have to yell at me. We're fighting over semantics here, so everybody in the chat from Miami that completely hates me, I've not taken you out of my top 3, but let's go ahead and get into it.
Nothing has changed, obviously, for Miami because they didn't play last week.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a game last week.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Louisville game is going to be a nice little reminder for everybody of how dominant that they can be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still standing by this. And I know this is kind of like this isn't going to be a very long argument to be had because there's no new information that's been presented to us. I think that Ohio State is starting to show that they're establishing a run game, which was my only just small general, not concern, but one thing that I thought that Miami did a lot stronger. I'm not really kind of coming at you as angrily as I have in the past, but I'm sticking with Miami. And if you want to have Ohio State at 1, that's completely fine.
What has Ohio State done since losing to Michigan that we could sit here and say that they don't deserve it?
I think that if we're being very specific and separating what makes teams great, as we've talked about a couple times so far this year, Miami has the better offensive line and they've got the better defensive line than Ohio State. I think that everything else, Ohio State is equal or better than Miami's. But I think that, and I value a lot, a team that is stout on both sides of the ball in the trenches. That means a lot to me.
We say that about the offensive line until the first time they went on the road and couldn't run the football in Florida State.
They still ran over 100 yards. I wouldn't classify that as that they couldn't run the ball. I mean, the same thing applies for Ohio State, that they couldn't run the ball against Texas. They've had games where they've struggled to generate a good yards per carry clip. So that's where the separation is.
Joe, do they have anybody that can guard Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and those guys, Max Clare, and the guys? I mean, have we seen them be tested? Like, really, I'm really asking. Has Miami truly been tested? When you now look at it, with Florida State now not having a conference win, with Florida about to fire their head coach, I get you could say G5 in South Florida, but I'm really asking. Because that narrative gets painted on Ohio State, but it's not being painted on Miami because of what they went through at the time that they went through it. So I asked the question, like, not saying that they haven't dominated and haven't been dominating, but at the same time, I know Miami fans don't like saying this, but this is just an actual fact. The actual fact was it was a 7-point game against Florida with 5 minutes left to go in the game. I really don't think outside the Texas thing that there were real chances of Texas really getting into that one until the end, and then they just wee down their leg.
Wait, what do you mean about that with Texas?
They dominated Texas. I mean, Texas couldn't move the ball.
But Texas was still in that game the whole game. If we're going to act like Florida was in the game with Miami, we have to acknowledge that Texas was. But this is why I don't like sitting here and going back and just talking about specific games and the outcomes of those games. Like, we're sitting here trying to determine who the best teams are.
The only reason you put power ratings is because of the outcomes.
But we're not – okay, talking about how teams have performed, we're not going to put a 2-win team on here. We're not going to do some dumb shit like that. I'm just trying to say that we're not doing resume-based ranking. That's not what the point of the power ranking is. We're trying to project here if we think that if these teams played one another, who would win?
Okay.
And I think that to the point that you asked, going up against DJ Lagway, who hasn't played well this year, is still a very gifted quarterback, was under 100 passing yards. The only teams that have gone up against a receiver room as good as Ohio State's are the teams that have played Ohio State, because there's no one that has a receiver room that is anywhere near as good. USC's is close. USC's isn't far off, but it's not as good as Ohio State's. So with that in mind, I have context of a secondary and a defensive coordinator that I would trust to at least slow them down enough for the game to be close.
Enough for the game to be close.
In order for them to win it.
So you would take Ohio State over Miami today?
No. I would take Miami to win.
I would take Ohio State until they prove me wrong. Basic. Do I worry about Ohio State's offensive line and Julian Sand not being really having situations where he's been under a lot of pressure? Yes. Has Ohio State, for me, resumes do matter. It doesn't matter if we disagree or agree on that. Just my stance on it. I think not leaving the state of Florida is a thing. Like, I want to see you go on the road. Like, at the end of the year, you got to go to some northern, colder situations if you're Miami, and we're going to see how you deal with it. And I think they're going to deal with it fine. And I think that they win those games. At the same time, your schedule's kind of catered to you a little bit, and I do weigh that in there. I'm going to weigh that in there. And I just, again, I want to see – I don't know if there's a team that's truly had the ability and athletes to test them the way that they need to be tested.
But this is where you and I keep getting butting heads on this. If we spend too much time talking about and projecting that we have to see teams tested, it's week 8. We've seen some teams be tested a lot more than others.
But I also have Ohio State that's in a conference that teams that are better, that have the athletes that are better, that can put pressure on them.
Miami's played a tougher schedule than Ohio State.
No, they haven't.
Yes, they absolutely have. Absolutely, they have.
Joe, Miami has played how many ranked opponents versus Ohio State that's played 2? Washington is a better team, with all due respect, than what Florida is.
Florida is better. Florida has better athletes and a better roster.
Yeah, but they're not a better team. I say that all the time about them having dudes, and you're saying, well, the team's not better. They went into Washington. Washington should be ranked. Sorry,
but they're not ranked. So who's the other ranked team that Ohio State is beating?
Are dumb. Let's just be honest.
An overrated Illinois team, to me, is not an impressive win. I thought that they kicked. I thought that they kicked the shit out of them, and Indiana beat them by 53 points. There's a little bit of a difference when we're talking about that. Let me reframe before Ohio State fans get pissed off at me.
Please get pissed off.
I think that beating Illinois is a good win. I more so am implying that I did not think that Illinois was good enough to be ranked.
I feel like every time
bad offensive line. No,
I feel like every time me and you do power rankings, I'm prepping for like law school. I feel like me and you could go to Harvard now.
Well, I'm
Harvey Specter.
That's not true. That's absolutely not true.
I'm Harvey Specter, and you're Mike Ross.
Yeah, I don't think we're smart enough for that. There's a reason why we're sitting here doing.
No, we're not. All right, let's go to some other ones here.
Let's talk about Indiana. We both have Indiana at number 3.
Indiana at number 3. Look, I got to eat my words here. I did not think that they were going to go into Eugene and win, and Kurt Cignetti and this team keeps winning, and they're a top team in the country.
The only thing that I legitimately was debating was putting Alabama ahead of them, and what made it close was the momentum that Alabama has at the current moment in the way that their defense has improved. But the reality is we have to acknowledge and we have to appreciate Indiana has been one of the more balanced teams in college football. As we've had these debates and these discussion on who's the most balanced, Indiana's run defense, their pass defense, they've got all conference caliber players at every single position group, and then they run the ball really well. And Fernando Mendoza has the passing prowess to air out any secondary. He made a lot of great plays against a really good Oregon defense. That to me is what's impressive about Indiana and why they're warranted being in number 3. Let me say this, though, before you jump in here. I don't think, because you love to talk about past games and whatnot and resumes, and I don't like to do it as much, so I think that this is more in line with your thinking. Out of any team in our top 12s, I think Indiana has the most impressive wins. So they beat Oregon on the road, and they have a 53-point win against Illinois. I know that's
I would
like
still go Bama. Because Bama beat a ranked Vandy, they beat a ranked Tennessee, they beat a ranked Missouri. So I'm not going to agree with you there. I do think that they have the best win if you're going to compare them to Bama going into Eugene and getting that win. If you're talking about best wins, plural, I can't do that. Because two of those games, well, one of those games is going to be at Alabama. They have Tennessee this week. But look, the Florida State game is what it is, and it's going to haunt them in reference to these power ranking type of conversations and things. But when you beat Vanderbilt, you go into a situation where you beat Mizzou, and you come into a situation where Alabama, and by the way, I said Tennessee, you beat Georgia. By the way, two of those games are on the road.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, now that you're saying this, I retract my statement that I just said. I think that Alabama has the most impressive wins.
Plural.
The
right.
loss against Florida State is the only thing that kind of holds me back.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you this, and I'm not trying to pin Alabama and Indiana here. If Alabama goes a month straight beating ranked opponents, I'm going to be real with you. I'm putting them above Indiana, and they're going to sit there at 2.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree. Here's
that's a month. And by the way, newsflash, it doesn't end for them. These ranked games for Alabama doesn't end. So until they get to Auburn, ironically, it's not going to end for them unless Oklahoma just continues to wee down their legs too.
Here's the one thing I will say with Alabama that would really justify. Now that I'm actually thinking about it, I really do wish I put Alabama at 3. I hate when I do this to myself and after the fact, I realized that there was someone else I would have rather had higher. I think if they can continue their recent string of success at stopping opposing teams' rushing attacks when those teams running the football, it was their strengths, then I'll be willing to be very bought into what Alabama is going to do at the end of the year, because that ultimately was something that killed them against Florida State, and it almost hurt them against Georgia. Mm-hmm. But then they bounced back and they rapidly improved against Vanderbilt, and they did a really good job against Missouri bottling up Ahmad Hardy. So if they do that again this week against a Tennessee team that runs the ball pretty well and they bottle up Bishop, then I might actually just move them up next week to number 3.
I do wonder about Alabama. Here's why I put Indiana ahead of them. The run game and the injuries there worry me for Bama. I don't think that they're catching up to them right now, but I think eventually it will catch up to them. It might not catch up to him this week. But what is the status of Jam Miller? He's going to be questionable going into the game on Saturday, per Pete Nakos of On 3. What is that situation? By the way, what's the health status of Ryan Williams? If you don't have, if he doesn't have his premier weapon, then what's going to happen there? So I understand your thought process of putting them there, but if you're asking me, it is kind of starts becoming health status at this point. Hey, if you're on a neutral field tomorrow, I don't know if I don't lean a little bit more Indiana, because I worry. I trust Ty Simpson. I trust Ryan. I trust Grubb. I trust DeBoer in reference to what they've been doing. They've been able to beat all these ranked opponents in a month. They haven't really had. They haven't had a break where they're just playing. They're playing teams that are actually in the top 25. I get all of that. It also comes to bear hey man, a center and a left tackle had a catch and a carry more than Ryan Williams did last week because of health. I don't know the health status. I don't know what's going on there. I'm not even going to act like I know, because I don't. But it is something. And if Jam Miller's not there and he's not a part of their run game, Joe, I desperately worry about Alabama, because I think there's going to be a time where teams are just going to say, well, then run it on us. Then run it.
Yeah, they got to get healthy. And it is something to monitor, because Jam Miller, as we talked about, was the catalyst for their run game starting to come back. But now He's banged up again. He's got a concussion, I believe was what the issue was.
Concussion from last week. Yep.
So he keeps getting hurt and he keeps having these issues. If that is going to be the trend this season, then it makes it really hard to justify Alabama being their true selves, being their highest potential version of themselves. It wouldn't shock me if they were this banged up still later on in the season and they don't drop a game that they're not supposed to. But I'm in on Bama. I really think Bama's going to be fine. And again, I'm sitting here thinking about how maybe I should move them at 3. I have one team that I have a serious issue with.
Let me ask you this. Do you agree with Viv that the SEC is overrated?
Wait, why are you getting baited by that?
Well, I think it's an interesting conversation.
I don't think that the SEC is overrated. I do not think that they carry the same weight as they have in the past, though, and I think that that's very true.
It definitely looks that way right now. It looks like that they don't have an elite team. But at the same time, to your logic, 7-point win versus Texas. Oh, well, we didn't open the offense up. Well, it's still only a 7-point win versus Texas if you're Ohio State.
Wait,
Indiana. I mean, I gotta ask a question. I stuck up for Oregon. You got beat by Indiana at home, and then you go into double overtime to a 3-loss Penn State team. What are you? I think there's questions around some of the top teams in the Big Ten too, just not as much as around the SEC. Meaning the SEC top teams have losses. Besides, and people don't trust Ole Miss, people don't trust A&M because they've never done it. But the teams like Ohio State and now Indiana don't have losses, so you don't look at their resumes, or you look at their resumes differently versus a Georgia and a Bama that does have a loss. Does that make sense?
Not really. Here's my.
Well, let me just
wait.
What's the difference between Oregon's loss and what Georgia went through, or what some of these?
I have them ranked very similarly. I think that the problem is in the difference between the Big Ten and the SEC currently this year, and why the SEC is quote down. A lot of the teams that are near the top of the conference that are ranked at the current moment have significant flaws, have like serious flaws. I don't think that Oregon's has any like legitimate flaws that are serious. They have weaknesses, but they got beaten in a tough game against a good team.
Yeah, running the
ball. Can you let me finish what I was trying to say here? That you have Georgia, who has no pass rush. You have Alabama, who has an incredibly inconsistent run defense. You have LSU, who can't throw the ball because of Garrett Nussmeier. Vanderbilt is one of the most overinflated teams for whatever reason. They're the one team that's definitely benefiting from the SEC logo being on their chest. Missouri showed plenty of issues on defense in their secondary. South Carolina was supposed to be a good team this year, and they
still haven't. You've gone through 7 teams, and you hadn't talked about the 2 undefeated ones.
Well, at the same time, Ole Miss, I don't think has been a truly dominant team. Look at the defensive issues that they've had. Same thing with Tennessee. They all have defensive issues.
Something about A&M. So I do. I understand.
A&M's the only one I don't think I can talk about. Admittedly, I think A&M's one of the most balanced teams in college football.
So again, what's the difference? What I said doesn't change the logic. I do think the Big Ten right now has 2 teams that sit above because they don't have that loss on the end of their resume.
But forget about the resume for 2 seconds here. We're talking about how the conferences are perceived. Like, very simple question. Wait.
Overall, then you got to admit the back end of the Big Ten is trash.
That's fine. That's fine. And I would actually argue, though, now the back end of the Big Ten is proving that it's improving because Northwestern and UCLA are a lot more competitive than they've been in the past. But what I was going, and Purdue is also a lot more competitive than they've been in the past. But let me ask you this, and I think that this is a very fair point.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any SEC team that is legitimately in the conversation for the top 2 teams?
No. I mean, if Bama beats Tennessee this week, then excuse my language.
I don't think that justify. But they lost to Florida State.
And they beat 4 straight ranked opponents. By the way, just a newsflash, Alabama would have played and beaten more ranked opponents than your 2 top teams combined.
Forget the resume but this is this is all funneling back into the same conversation that we're sitting here and having. They're beating ranked teams because they're playing teams that have inflated rankings. That's the whole point.
You just legitimately called Illinois overrated.
That's not, but that has nothing to do with what I've brought up to you.
Yes, it does.
Illinois was overrated.
Not every team that you play can't be trash, especially when you have them in your top teams.
Illinois was overrated, but you know who's underrated right now? I do think that Washington's underrated. I do think that USC is incredibly underrated. I think that Nebraska is underrated as well.
I'm out on Nebraska. I'm completely out on Nebraska. Don't hit me with that.
The problem with using the argument of just saying that said team has more ranked wins than other teams in other conferences is the inherent bias of those that are ranking are going to keep ranking SEC teams with good records.
You literally just said, less than 10 minutes ago, that if Alabama does that you would put them at 2, and now you're re-going back.
No. I said 3. I said 3 over Indiana. I said I would move them to 3 over Indiana. I wouldn't move them up any higher.
Regardless of the number, then you're agreeing with the resume part of it. Because you literally just said 10 minutes ago that if
you're missing a part of what I said. You're missing a key part about what I just said.
I'll let you finish. If you beat another ranked opponent, you would put them above Indiana. Why?
The key thing that I brought up that's not even what I said. What I said during that take was that if their run defense continues to have more good performances like they had against Vanderbilt and Missouri, then I will feel justified in moving them up to number 3 over Indiana.
So next week, if they win this week, and you move them to 3. Okay, if you move them,
they're still not a top 2 team. I think that there's a line of separation between Ohio State, Miami, and Alabama and Indiana.
I think there's a separation between Ohio State, Miami, and then everybody else.
Yes, that's what I just said.
Right. So then you're basically saying the Big Ten and the ACC have the 2 top teams.
That's correct, but we're not going to sit here and argue for the ACC having competitive teams because they legitimately got.
So then when I say Miami's not playing anybody, you can't get mad at that.
But just because they're not playing anybody does not mean and that's still BS because they beat Notre Dame the way that they did in the beginning of the season. That is still, if we're talking resume, it's still impressive.
And that one was on the road. And you're not giving A&M. And this is another thing. No one's ready to give A&M any credit yet.
What's A&M's last toughest game that they've played? After the Notre Dame game.
I'm trying. Give me a second.
State, Auburn,
maybe.
This Florida. Is why I don't. Blake, this is my
probably Florida. If we're going to say it, it's probably Florida after Notre Dame.
This is Miami beat Florida by a similar score.
No, it wasn't a similar score. If you watch the game, you would know. If you watch the game, A&M.
I did.
No, I'm not saying you. I didn't say you didn't. I didn't mean it like that. Okay. A&M completely dominated them.
So did Miami.
No, they didn't. Joe, it was a 7-point game with 5 minutes left. There wasn't domination. Stop with that.
Why?
Stop.
I don't remember it being that close with 5 minutes left.
I will rate right here. It was a 7-point game with 5 minutes left. They went for it multiple times on 4th down, which gave them short fields.
There was also a long touchdown that was called back because of a completely ridiculous reason.
Good, but at the same time, I can watch A&M versus that team and watch them completely dominate them. Viv completely started a whole holy war here before we even talk about BYU and Utah.
Holy shit, man. All right, but I'm not going to sit here and you're not going to sit here.
I'm telling you, it's 5 minutes. It's a 7-point game with 5 minutes left.
Scoring plays.
Go to the very bottom because it will tell you.
It was 19-7 in the 4th quarter.
No. Before it got there, when it's 14-7, is there 5 minutes left to go on the clock? Yes or no?
Florida scored. Okay, it was 13-0 at halftime, Florida scored with 3 minutes to go, and then Miami scored with 4 minutes to go. But there was a long Marty Brown touchdown that was called back.
Marcel Reed's 17-yard run got called back for a holding. I can do this all day.
I think that we can also both agree that Week 3 Florida was a lot chippier than the version of Florida at the current moment when we're hearing rumors that Billy Napier is going to get fired.
And going into Notre Dame is tougher than playing them at home in Week 1 with a brand new quarterback that doesn't have.
Am I reading this correctly? Are you trying to argue that you think A&M is on par with Miami, or are you just trying to argue that they've got a tough
Here's
schedule?
my hot take on A&M at the current moment. If they keep finding some shit defensively, I don't know.
I mean, they're finding it.
Joe, I'm sorry, brother. I mean, you posted this week about Cassius Howe. They're finding shit defensively. So I don't want to overreact to A&M because they'll do what they always do in November and completely shit their pants. However.
Okay. But here's my problem with that conversation, because as you're bringing up and leaning into resume to look at past context, their best defensive performances have come in matchups where they have faced off with teams that do not have very consistent offenses. So we're talking about feasting on Auburn, that's been a mess, Mississippi State, that was a little bit overrated, and also doing what they did to Florida when they were hanging on life support. So as much as it's
the overrated Arizona State win for Mississippi State if Texas Tech blows them out.
But like Arizona State's not a top 25 team, so it doesn't really do much for me for the conversation. I don't think that it takes anything away from Texas Tech. If Texas Tech smokes, like completely we're not doing. Wait, stop. We're not doing transitive property.
A word.
That's multiple layers of transitive property that we.
I didn't say a word. I literally
about to.
Say a word.
I know when you're about to say something.
You're like a woman. You're accusing me of saying something I didn't even say.
Don't call me a woman. Don't call me a woman. That's okay. Like, all I'm saying is that the best offense that they faced this year was Notre Dame, and they gave up 41 points. And as much as their defense has improved, and I'm excited by it, I have a lot of pause because we're not going to find out how legit that defense is until
they ironically play an LSU team, with all due respect, that can't find offense.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, I don't count that as an example. If
LSU's a one-loss team and they go into that place at night, I'm sorry. I'm just going to tell you.
Wait. No, it's going to be an important, good game. LSU's offense is ass, though. Like, I'm just being as candid as
Florida's.
Yeah, but that's my whole point, is that they're literally, I'm looking at their schedule right now. The hardest offensive matchup that they have, if we take away Notre Dame, is Arkansas or Missouri. Missouri probably would be up there. Texas's offense has been a mess. No one can block for Lenore Sellers at the current moment, and we're not including Samford into the conversation. So all I'm saying is that their defense might look better, but like, how real is that?
I will say this. Outside of the Oregon thing, which is a big deal, okay? But I think Notre Dame's kind of in the same breath as if Oregon continues to do what they're doing. I do put a lot of weight on – we called it a signature win for Mike Elko going into South Bend, Indiana, and winning.
Yeah, and I give them all credit for it, but their defense got cooked by the second start for a redshirt freshman. The version of CJ Carr right now goes and plays that secondary. What is the score?
But he's
gotten better since that game. I'm just saying.
But their defense has gotten better. CJ Carr can get better, and so can their defense.
All I'm saying is that you played a top 10 quarterback and you gave up 40 points.
And you gave up 41. I mean, you can't come out here and say, well, Miami found a way to win multiple games, and then when A&M does it, it's just, it doesn't matter. All right, we got to move on. We got to move on to the next. You want to hit them at the end?
Let's get to the super chats really quick, and then we'll do the